Hello everybody and welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to focus on Simtoolkit Pro, a remarkable flight planning, tracking and logging piece of software that has been around, but the developer keeps on making it better with every update. And Dan, I just want to thank you for giving us this piece of software and for everything that you do for our community. As you guys are able to see on the screen there, I've just inserted a bit of text just to put us into the context of this video and to explain what we're going to look at. So there are four basic ways of using the software. There are plenty more features that are obviously not listed, but as we are concentrating on flight planning, your four basic flight planning ways of using this software will be in standalone mode. It means no Simbrief, nothing else. There's no integration. It's literally just the free piece of software that you get from the website that you install, and then you are going to be able to paste and create your own flight routes from that scenario. Our second option is obviously with Simbrief integration. If you have a Simbrief account, it's easy enough to just put in your credentials. If you do not have a Simbrief account, it's also free to a certain extent, except for your Navigraph AirAx, which I would highly recommend you get anyway, both of them, Simbrief and Navigraph. So you can investigate that as well. And like I said, highly recommended. Then thirdly, we have the integration with Navigraph charts. It's probably one of the most significant investments that you can make in your flight simming career. So also, if you have the money, whether you want to do it on a monthly basis or purchase it outright, that's up to you. But I would also highly recommend getting the desktop charts and just flying more real, like a real pilot, with having the tools available that is needed in the trade. Then lastly, the fourth option is using PFPX. The PFPX integration is not fully completed in Simtoolkit Pro as we are talking today. Dan mentioned to me earlier in the week he'll try and integrate it a little bit more, and there are functionality we spoke about in terms of PFPX that he's hoping to integrate before version 6 gets released, because that is going to be the next version. We are currently on version 5.23. So anyway, it's usable. It's just not possible to save the PFPX OFP in Simtoolkit Pro as it stands here today, which is something that I think is really necessary, because currently it's capable of saving the Simbrief OFP, so it should be just a natural extension of the program to just start saving your PFPX as well. So as mentioned, the very first option we're going to look at is going to be the standalone version. There's no Simbrief integration. We are going to copy and paste the flight plan and then create our flight with that within Simtoolkit Pro. As with any flight planning, our starting point has to be the weather. We need to know what the weather is doing at our departure and our destination. We also need to know specifically what the wind is doing, because an aircraft always takes off and lands into the wind unless a specific airport standard operating procedure, the SOP, tells us differently. Simtoolkit Pro makes provision for that very function. And for me, that's one of the selling points of this program. Everything is integrated, everything is in one application. And let me show you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our flight menu. Under our flight menu, we've got flight summary, flight planning, the checklists, and the wind calculator. And if we go to our wind calculator, we can type in the ICAO code for our departure. So we are currently at LFML, and then it's basic at this point in time. We don't need to know much more. We just want to find some other indication of where and what the wind is doing and coming from. So we've got 17 knots wind. We can get that from our METAR as well over there. We just decodes it. We've got our components. And then it's up to us to just put the arrow in the correct place, because we're still talking basics. I mean, an aircraft takes off and lands into the wind, not with a tailwind. So that is more like what we are aiming for. We want the wind to come from the front. So at this airport, we've got a 3-1 left and a 3-1 right to choose from. But again, we just want it to come from the front. So we have options, 3-1 left or 3-1 right. We are then also going to look at our destination, and we're going to do a very similar exercise. So we're going to just start with the basics top down. And lucky for us, we already have a wind component coming from the front. So runway 3 is very plausible. We do have a runway 17, doesn't look like it. 21, no, it doesn't. And then we have a 3-5. So when we are talking absolute basics and we do not take into account the airport SOPs or anything else, we are not flying online. We are not going to influence anybody negatively. I would say runway 35 is going to be the better option in this regard. Now, you are welcome to take it. There's nothing that's going to stop you from taking it. I, on the other hand, obviously know the standard operating procedure at the airport, and I know that in the real world, they don't use that runway unless they have special permission. And the last time I looked, the runway was in fact closed because they are using the runway for storage of aircraft, and it's lined up and packed with a whole bunch of airframes. So runway 03 in my mind is going to be the better one. But like I said, if you don't take the SOPs into consideration, runway 35 will be the better one. All right. Just to make it easy on myself, I'm going to stick with runway 03 because then I can, figure things out just a little bit easier. But the whole aim of the video is to take you through the steps, and then you'll be sufficiently enabled to actually figure it out on your own as well. So let's see what we're going to do as we get further. The next step and recommendation I would like to give you guys is to actually now go do a bit of reconnaissance on the airports that is in our flight plan, our departure and our arrival airports. So we're going to do that in the live map. So this is us over there with a little red aircraft. You can change the colors and things in the settings here at the bottom. So I've customized some of my colors. That is me over there. This is obviously LFML, the airport itself. And if you recall, when we did the wind checks, it told us that the 3-1 runways are going to be the preferred ones due to the wind. We've got a 3-1 left and we've got a 3-1 right over there. Obviously 3-1 right is closer to us. So if we don't take any SOPs into consideration for this airport, my money is on 3-1 right to be the correct runway for takeoff. So we're going to make a mental note, 3-1 right. Then at the top right hand side, we can actually now put LPPT as our arrival. Press enter. It takes us to the airport, and over here we can see runway 03 that I said I've decided to take that one just because I happen to know the SOP. And for you guys who are not concerned about the SOPs, that is runway 35 in the scenery that is freely available from the ORC. There are no aircraft on that runway. It's not used as a storage facility. So if you want to, you can obviously use that as your preferred runway. I'll stick to runway 03 for the reasons mentioned already. All right, so that gives us an indication and a bit of an idea of what we are going to encounter. Now, in the real world, Ryanair actually parks down here, and we are obviously going to use runway 03, and we're going to get off somewhere, towards the end, and then we're just going to taxi all the way back over there for our gates. Again, this is entirely, just user options. There's nothing forcing you to come down there. If you are not simulating to that level, do not worry about it. You can go park anywhere for that matter. I'm just basically mentioning what I've got in the back of my mind and how I do it. So I'm mixing a little bit of the basics with some, general knowledge I already have. So just one of those things. Now, moving on to the next step is we're going to have to create the flight. So what we're going to do is going to go to flight planning. We find this under our flight menu, flight planning, and that brings us to this page. All right, so we already know that we've decided that 31 right will be the departure runway at the airport, and 03 will be the receiving runway at the destination. So that is very important because there's a certain format we need to put the flight plan into Simtoolkit Pro. We obviously are in need of a flight plan. We need to know how to get there because it's not something that I know that this um, program can actually do, and that's auto routing. I haven't seen it actually be capable of doing that, so I do apologize if it's there, but I don't know about it. So for our purposes and my purposes at least, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to virtual Ryanair, which is my virtual airline that I fly for, and I'm quickly going to bring it onto the screen. So over here we've got our departure airport and the arrival airport details. And over here, we've got our flight plan. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy the actual flight plan as it's given to us. Now, remember, this can be any website. This can be actual real world. It can be something that you planned in Route Finder or wherever, that you got it. It just has to be a valid route because in the mode that we are now, this standalone mode, there is no validation that gets done. If you put an incorrect route in here, it might or it might not work, but there's nothing that's going to validate the route for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to just paste the raw route, but as it comes in from the copy and paste function, it's not going to work at all. We need to add a couple of things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add the airports, and then we're going to add the runways. If we do not add the runways, it's not going to give us the options for the SIDS and stars. So we're going to put a forward slash. We said 31 right. There's got to be a space in between, guys. Just make sure you do that. And on the other side, we've got 03. So once we've got the airport, the active runway, the actual flight route, as well as the airport and the runway on the other side, we can click on load pasted flight plan. All right, that now draws the actual flight route for us. So it gives us the indication to and from. And that brings up this option over here. And as I move my mouse, you can see that it's now changing and showing you the actual standard instrument departure visually depicted. And you can now move your mouse until you find one that makes you happy, that is in line with the route that you are going to take. So another clue is obviously going to be the first waypoint that we're aiming for, Foxtrot, Juliet, Romeo, and we see that there are two. In actual fact, one Foxtrot, Juliet, Romeo available. Sorry, it's very grayed out and I have to come closer to actually read it. So if you look at the map, it gives you a depiction there, shows you it's going to go up and then dip a bit and go back up again, but that is the one we're going to take. And Then just by moving over it, it obviously moves the map for us. We can now zoom in and get a clearer picture and understanding of what's going to happen. So we're going to take off from 3-1 right. We're going to fly all the way up to a certain point. It's going to turn us around and then put us on the actual SID, which is perfect. So we can close that. Now, if we move along the route, we can see that there's no discontinuities. It takes us to a certain point where we're going to pick up our star. What I would suggest is look at Ninos over there, and then you can try and decipher it. There's no real indication what it should be. I don't think there is a Ninos star. No, there isn't. So what we're going to look at is just zoom out a little bit, and then we're going to start moving our mouse again. So we've got something over there, something over there. All right, so we've got a couple of options already. There's one over there as well. There's one over there. All right, so if we start from the beginning and just maybe zoom in a little bit more to get more detail, we've got that one that can definitely work for us on runway 03, and then we've got that one. Okay, the difference is the one is a bit longer than the other one, so let's take the short one. Why don't we just take the short one? All right, so if we zoom in now, you'll see that a route has now been added. That star is in position. So we've got a direct to from that waypoint to that waypoint, where it gets onto the standard terminal arrival. It looks good. Okay, then we have the option of a transition, whether we want to put the transition in there or not. For me, it doesn't look as if it's really necessary. All we're going to do is we're going to increase the one side of the leg, and it looks like a mismatch. So I'm going to skip that, and our approach we can actually put in there. So there we go. So we've got the actual CF03 on approach, but we're going to skip that portion. We really don't need that, so we can actually just close that out. And there we've done it. We've literally created a visual flight route for us, including the SID and the star. What we then need to do is we need to put our cruise level in. We're going to be flying west. Now, this is again going to mix a little bit of the basics with the more advanced or intermediate information. The semicircular rule says that when you fly west, you've got to be on an even altitude when you fly IFR. So we're talking 32, 34, 36,000. It looks like a nice long route. So I'm going to guess 360. Now, if you're flying offline, you're not flying online, you're not going to interfere with anybody. That's it. That's all you need to do. The next step, once we get to the intermediate or advanced flight planning stages, then you're going to have to consider the fact that in Portugal, the guys don't fly east to west on the semicircular rule. They fly north and south. So depending on the direction you fly, you're going to have to probably be on an odd number instead of an even number, or vice versa, but that's not important right now. We're still just talking about basics. I'm happy with this. We're going to use the ordinary rule, and we're just going to fly 360 from right to left. Then we're going to give our flight number from the Ryanair website. We can see that is our number. I'm actually going to copy it, FR2078, and that will be the actual ICAO code that the ATC uses to communicate with us. We do not use that one. That's the IATA number. That is valid on your ticket, and for the passengers on their tickets, it's valid up to the counter. After the counter, this is what becomes active. So we're going to put them in the appropriate places. So we're going to say FR so and so, and then we're going to copy the ICAO call sign that the ATC is going to use. We are then going to select our aircraft. Guys, I did not go into selecting and creating aircraft and things because this is a flight planning tutorial. At some point in time, I'll go into that more detail, but this is my airframe that I'm going to use, and that takes us to the fly now button. What is very important before I click that is I just want to bring it under your attention because no validation has taken place. This program, Simtoolkit Pro, does not know whether this is a valid flight plan or not. It's trusting and relying on you to have given it a reliable flight plan, and therefore, because there is no validation, there is no export function. You cannot export this to the FMC in the Zibo, and you cannot export it to Watson or Avaya or any other place because no one knows whether it's a correct flight plan or not. So the only thing you can do is you can click on Fly Now. All right, that brings us to our flight summary page, and we are literally ready to get into the aircraft and get going. On the left-hand side, you will see once you have completed the flight, you can click the Complete Flight button, and that will then log the flight for you, saving the important information, and you can review it later on in the program as well. Very, very nice function. If you do not click Complete the Flight, then obviously it will not be logged. The moment you close the program, it's going to drop it. It's just going to forget about it. All right, you can edit your flight or you can cancel your flight. Those are the other buttons. You can fix your phase. If the program does not recognize the phase of the flight that you are in, you just click that button. We do have our whole string that includes the ICAOs for the departing and arriving airports, the runways, the SID, and also the star and everything in between. So that's given to us. You can now take this and program that then manually into your Zibo and go to that flight. Just make sure that it validates. The other thing that we have is we've got our airport elevations, the runway in use. We've got runway lengths, density, altitude, very important for hot and high conditions. We've got the transition altitude. We've got our runway, the true as well as the magnetic heading. We've got the runway slope. A minus in that position denotes that it's a downhill slope. So you're going to, when you program page 2 on your reference page, you're going to say capital D 0. In this case, a number 4, because that literally rounds up to 0.4. Right, we've got the ISA deviation, which is not that important for the takeoff, but it's very important for the landing. If you simulate to that level and you want to get the correct ISA for the airport, that's where you'll find it. There's the slope again, glide slope for the ILS if you're going to use it. It obviously expects or accepts that you're going to use the ILS, and all the other things are in there, and that is obviously your airport elevation. So when you set up your pressurization in the Zibo, you're going to use um, those values. Guys, just as a matter of interest, I keep on talking about the Zibo, obviously partial to it, but this program works for P3D as well. So don't stay yourself blind. It's not a Zibo thing. This is actually a flight sim thing. So if you're flying the PMDG aircraft or any other aircraft for that matter, this program is as valid. I'll try and remember not to use the word Zibo that much because it literally is for everybody. This is not a Zibo or a X-plane thing only. It's for P3D and any other aircraft that would use this. Okay. We've got frequencies which doesn't matter really for us in this dispensation and this portion of the training. We've got the METAR again. You've got the actual aviation METAR, and then you've got it decoded for you as well. And this is very interesting. So we've got gusts up to 35, which is going to make taking off interesting. Let's look at the one on the side. Sky is clear, opposed to a few clouds, same story. And then we've got the terminal forecast as well. So very powerful, very nice tools at our disposal. Now, when you watch the next stage of this video, you'll see that once we do the Simbrief integration, your OFP will come and sit here. What is nice is you can actually type here, you can make notes, you can do a couple of things. So even if your OFP is here, you can add notes. So if you want to check your fuel burn, for instance, you can physically type into your OFP, and it will then later on be saved for you for future reference as well. There is obviously a scratch pad where you can do exactly the same thing if you want to make separate notes that does not influence the OFP, and there you've got all your route waypoints. All right, so um, at this point in time, you can simply go and you can get in the aircraft and get going if this is the basic way that you want to use this program. One or two more things that I just want to mention to you. It sometimes happens that the program does not connect to your simulator. This facility here at the bottom where you've got these arrows in the circle, all you need to do is you need to click on it and you need to just wait a short while. The program will then reconnect to your simulator and give you the integration there. All right, so that's just a small tip while I'm thinking about it. From this page, once you have used up all the information you can go back to your live map and you can actually click on follow me and auto zoom, and this program will then do the necessary so you can complete your taxi. Once you take off, it will zoom out and it will then follow you on your track and things like that. The rest, guys, I think is not really part of this tutorial. You can just go play around with this program to enable the weather. As you can see, the precipitation is there and stuff like that. So that concludes the first section of this video, and we will then look at the next section where we are going to integrate Simbrief. Welcome to part 2 of this tutorial. In this one, we're going to look at the actual Simbrief integration with Simtoolkit Pro, and we're going to start by actually starting in Simbrief. So if you look at the screen now, you'll see I've put in all the details as I received it from my virtual airline. I've put everything into Simbrief. The only thing I did not do was I did not specify the altitude. The reason for that is I want Simbrief to do the step climb thing for me. Like we discussed earlier, there are different altitudes that is legally required to fly. So we're just going to take it to the next level, leave it at the auto, and then we'll see if Simbrief actually picks up on that and make us use that. So again, it's an option. You don't have to do that. You can put in your 370, get it over with. I mean, that is what the VA suggests there, is 370, or whatever other altitude that you're looking for, depending on the situation and how advanced you want to simulate. So all up to you. I'm going to leave it at auto and let's see what Simbrief does. Now, Simbrief, obviously, when you choose your runways, puts in a SID and a star for you. And if memory serves me correct, that one is exactly right. But this one was, in fact, in our planning we did earlier, was 7A and not a 8A. But we're going to leave it as that just to make things simple. All right, we've obviously analyzed our route. We know the route is validated, and that is going to have an influence in Simtoolkit Pro because all of a sudden we're going to have the ability to export this plan and do something more with it than what we had previously. All right, once we are satisfied that everything is in the place we want it to be, we can now generate our flight plan. And obviously, you guys who are familiar with Simbrief, you've done this, many times, and you know what this is all about. Once this is done, we're going to import it directly into Simtoolkit Pro. All right, so this means it's done, and we are going to move it out of the way. In Simtoolkit Pro, the only thing we need to do now is to come and load the latest Simbrief flight. We click on the button, sit back and relax, and there you go. Everything is exactly as we had it in Simbrief. Just want to zoom out there. You can see the SID and star is in place. Well, that's our star. Hope you saw the SID. So let me just zoom in there. There you go. Now I can actually just verify visually that it is there. And any other changes we want to make, we can make here, or we can simply accept it. Now, if we go back to this side of things, let's see if we can put the transition in there. So now we can put the transition, All right, transition is inserted, and we can just close it down. Not sure why it's not taking that away if it's actually accepting it. Usually when it accepts it, it goes away. Whatever the situation is, it's literally just that portion. So it's not the end of the world. We're just going to close everything. Over here, we can just check our flight number, our actual call sign, make sure we've got the correct aircraft loaded. We've got the altitude. Now, next to our Fly Now button, you will now find an export button. If you click on the export button, you can save this directly to your FMS plan folder in the output folder in Explain, and then pick up on the route in the Zibo later. So you just use the company route function, import it directly, everything in place. Or you can open your Simbrief OFP, save your Simbrief OFP. There's your VATSIM and your iVayo pre-file facilities. So if you click on any one of those, it will open the corresponding web pages for you. All within Simtoolkit Pro, by the way. You don't have to go to your browser. It will open it here as if a browser, and you can file your flight plan and do with this as you wish. So for our purposes, we're going to click on Fly Now. And there you can immediately see a difference from the previous entry-level standalone version. Now this page actually contains your complete OFP from Simbrief. Alright, so you don't have to be in your browser or anywhere else. Everything is given for you. Same goes for all the information on the left hand side. And once you have completed the Zibo setup and well, the aircraft setup, sorry, I forgot to skip the Zibo word. Once you've done your aircraft setup, you can then literally go to your map and zoom back into position. You can select follow me and auto zoom again if you want to, and let the program then do everything for you. Complete your taxi, take off, auto zoom will zoom out, and you'll be on your merry way. Once you are done, you go back to your flight summary and click on complete flight. It will then log it for you and keep it for posterity. And with that, we have finished part 2A. The next section, part 2B, will be about doing everything in Simtoolkit Pro and then sending the information to Simbrief and then waiting for it to come back, and we'll be at the same position again. I will show that to you in a moment. Now in part 2B, we are actually going to create the flight here in Simtoolkit Pro, and we are going to just fill in the blanks to the best of our abilities. You can type the ICAO code, guys, or you can actually type the name. It will then search for you and then give you the drop-down list, and then you can choose which one you want. Just want to open my web page for Ryanair Virtual again. The flight number is FR2078. Our ATC call sign is Ryanair 8 Kilo Papa. We can then set our departure time to whatever time you want it as our departure date, and very importantly, you need to select your aircraft from this location already. Now, to make things easy, you can literally click on generate a plan. It will take this information, go grab some generic plan, whatever Simbrief comes up with using this information, give it to you, and you can go. Or if you want more control, which is where I come into usually, because I'm a control freak to a certain point, is I can actually now start copying and pasting the information that I want to force onto Simbrief. So what was the alternate? Faro, correct. Yes. Right. Units, kilograms, continuous. All of this is based upon my presets in Simbrief. So I'm not going to mess around with any of the taxi or the contingency or reserve fuels. It will use whatever I set up as default in my Simbrief. The departure runway we know is a 31, right? The arrival runway we said 03. We want the Lido format. It's very nice. You can actually pick and choose the passengers 110, and the cargo was a 2.1. Zero fuel weight, we're not going to put in. All right, cruise profile, we're going to select CI, and Ryanair flies with a CI of 6, generally, usually. And our cruise altitude, we can leave at auto or we can specify 370. I'm going to leave it at auto, and then we can see what happens. From here on, all we need to do is generate our plan. Apologies, guys, the video jumped a little bit there because I picked up a technical error when I created the flight plan previously. So I'm just going to redo it, and I'm starting from clicking the create flight plan. One thing that I just want to also mention while we're on the screen is the owners of Simbrief do not allow more than one instance. So if you have it open in your browser, or you have used it in your browser and you're still logged in there, it's going to kick Simtoolkit Pro out of contention, so you won't be able to just go in there, and you have to re-log in as I'm doing here now. And let's do it. There we go. So now Simtoolkit Pro is busy talking with Simbrief. The whole process runs as we know it, and then it will populate Simtoolkit Pro for us when done. So in part 2A, we did everything from Simbrief and then brought it into STKP. Now we did everything in STKP. The browser for Simbrief is not even open. We logged out there. We put all the information in Simtoolkit Pro, and we click on create the button. This changes a couple of things for us. It brings a little bit more control to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to now have to set up our SIDs and stars, all right, or at least whatever is missing. So that was the SID. We've done that one, and then from memory I'm just going to use this INBO 7K, which was the short one. We'll stick to 8 for now because I know that was the preferred one from Simbrief earlier. It's either or. I mean, it's not going to break the bank whether it's a little bit shorter or longer. You can obviously edit it on the fly here and just make it fit where it needs to go. That is our transition, and that's it. That's all we need to do. We can just double click double check the information at the bottom here. The same thing happens now. We've got the export function because the flight plan is obviously validated. Everybody is happy, and we can click on fly now. This again gives us the OFP for Simbrief exactly as we know it. We can type in it like I said before, and we can do what we need to do. Now what is interesting, and continuing where I mentioned something earlier about different flight levels, our initial flight level, as there will be steps now, is going to be 360, and at a specific point we're going to have to change the flight level to comply with the legislation and the way that the guys fly in that part of the world. So just keep an eye on it. Again, this is a user option. If you're not flying online, and even if you are flying online, if there is no ATC, nobody's going to know the difference. So this is entirely up to you whether you want to actually simulate to that level. It's a nice to have. It gives you something extra to do. So there you go. That takes care of Simtoolkit Pro and creating a flight plan from within it, sending it to Simbrief, and then receiving the information back. And our next step, obviously after utilizing all of the information and setting up the aircraft, is to simply go to the map and then take off and do our flight. Because of the technical glitch earlier, I had to close my explain, so that's why you don't see me online anymore. Unfortunately, one of the casualties of technical glitches. But I hope this makes sense to you, and that you're going to be able to recreate what I've just done. So when you are done with your flight, all you do is click on complete the flight. It will then put it in the logbook for you. For this section, we are going to introduce more advanced information. We are also going to introduce you to the Navigraph charts and how I cross-fill and utilize that inside of Simtoolkit Pro to enhance the flight planning experience and just take us to the next level. As always, we're going to start with the basics first. As many hours have gone by since I started producing this video, I'm obviously going to check the winds again because we might have to change something, and then you'll obviously see me do that on the fly. So again, under the flight menu, we're going to go to our wind calculator and then fill in the blanks. And we're going to try see which runway is the best option. We know 31 right is the better one for us from where we are taxiing. And what do you know? It's still exactly the same runway. We've got, I think, more wind now, maybe 2 knots more, if memory serves me correct. So we know at LFML this is correct. Let's go to Lisbon and see what's spotting there. We're going to start with 03. All right, so we are in exactly the same position. I'm not going to JIPO and use a runway 35. Now we're going to stick to the normal SOPs and things. So this is what we are facing, runway 03 at Lisbon. And with this knowledge, what we're going to do is we're going to start building the flight plan inside of Navigraph. Right, what I do then is I go to my charts, I open them up, and then I start reading because we need to know what the preferred runway and runway usage are. So, right here in the beginning, it already tells us that between certain times and with certain wind, the certain runway will be active. So we're talking runway 13, but we're outside of the time limit. We've got way more wind, so we're not going to be bound that much by the requirement there. What is, however, important for us is now to make sure we take off into the wind, which is obviously going to be the runway 31 side. You don't have to, but you are welcome to pin this just for your own reference at the bottom. I'm not going to do it right now. What I am looking for is the actual airport diagram because this is just one of the things that I do. So I'm pinning it at the bottom. So at any point in time, if I want a quick reference, I don't have to go and search. I just click at the bottom as usual. The next one we're going to look at is going to be Lisbon. We're going to go to taxi now. We're going to try and find this whole runway story again. Right there, it talks about the low visibility. Not quite what we're looking for. Close, but no cigar. There we go. Runway operations. All right, so runway 03 and 21 will be used preferentially as a runway in use, irrespective of runway 1735. However, if runway 321 is unsuitable for a particular operation, pilots may obtain permission from ATC to use runway 1735. All right, now like I said earlier in the video, last time I checked, it's actually being used as storage. So even if you're going to try and ask permission in the real world on I beg your pardon, on 1735, yeah, you're most likely not going to get it because nobody's going to allow you to land on another airframe that's standing there. So for our purposes, we're going to stick to the normal operation 0321. I'm going to pin that one for me just as a reminder anyway. And then I'm going to look for the airport diagram. So we've got the necessary information we need over there. All right. This is now going to take us to the actual route. I'm going to go refer back to the Ryanair page. which is this one over there, and I'm going to copy the route from there. And remember, guys, this can now be a route finder or whatever other piece of software you use, real world or simulation, doesn't matter, as long as you get a route now. That is the important thing. What we are then going to do is we're going to paste it right there in the middle and save it. So if we look at this route now, we've got lots more information at our disposal. We know we're going to use 3-1 right, so we can add that in there. Then we can look at our departures. Navigraph immediately tells us it's a northern departure, so we've got Foxtrot, Juliet, Romeo 5 November. So we're going to choose that one. It's going to populate it for us. It looks very similar to what we saw on Simtoolkit's map earlier. So we're happy with that. And that can also be pinned. Why not? Because for quick reference, we can click at the bottom. Then if we quickly want to go to the chart, we are then going to go over to our arrivals. And we know 03 is active. So we're going to look at our arrivals. Now, from memory, I can obviously recall that we said at one point in time we want to use the 7-1, not the 8-1. But there's an easy way of also finding this. We can actually click on the little I, and then we've got a very good idea that INBO 8A is a very good suggestion. And this is also what Simbrief told us. Remember, I changed it to the 7K1 at one point in time because I didn't want to fly that far, but much of a muchness. When we look at doing the planning this way, we can actually see that even Navigraph suggests the other one. So I beg your pardon, we need to go to this side. So we're going to take the 8A1. It's going to put it into position for us, and then we're going to go to the approaches that are available. We'll take the ILS for 03, and that completes our route. So what I then do is I go and copy the whole string, take the whole thing, and we go to our flight planning over here. All right, so that takes us from just need to check the numbers again quickly. F4 078 RYR 8 Kilo Papa. Then we go to advanced and we simply paste our route. Alright, so what I would suggest is just remove the first bit. You don't want the ICAO with the runway because we're going to specify that later. So it's going to be the whole route without the airports and the runways that go in there. Our alternate is Faro. Again, the same one. We're going to lose all the normal stuff. Then we're going to specify 31 right and 03 for the departure and destination runways. 110 passengers and 2.1 tons for the cargo CI, and that's going to be 6. Cruise altitude, we're going to leave auto again. Now you see we can't click on generate flight plan, and it's because I forgot to specify my aircraft. We have to specify the correct aircraft from our fleet, and then we can proceed and click generate plan. All right, there you have it, exactly as we saw it before. That includes our SID, includes the star. We can just close them as we're done with them. All right, in this sample now, because we're flying a little further, it actually now includes the transition for us, and that's it, end of the story. That's how it is. Then we've got our cruise altitude that we can check, flight number. We're going to fly offline. We can obviously specify online, offline, whatever. We've got our call sign. We've got the correct aircraft. And because the route was now validated and comes from Simbrief, we have the export function available to us. So it can go to any one of those providers. And we can simply click on Fly Now. So if you look at the OFP and you have all the information here, again, you can now start setting up your aircraft, do what you need to do. And at any point in time, you can simply click on the little tab here if you've enabled it. Obviously, I take it for granted it is. Otherwise, this section is meaningless to you. And there you have the actual flight plan. Now, this flight plan, as well as the actual routing, will be exactly the same as this one. All right, so now there's not going to be any discrepancies. They're completely in balance with each other. Go back there. So we have everything we need. We can actually go and just save these charts as well, just to, round it off, make the tutorial nice and complete. So at any point in time, if I want one of them, instead of the overview and the map, I can just go and click on any one of these documents and I can get the necessary information that I need. In section 4 of this tutorial, we are going to look at PFPX and what is available for the users using PFPX and how to get the information into Simtoolkit Pro. So we're going to create the same flight as we've been doing this whole morning. Let's get our numbers again. STKP, LFML to LPPT, and we're going to choose the Zebo. Save this flight. So we're going to plan the flight. We're going to, I'm going to leave it as optimal. I want to see what PFPX actually gives us for a cruise. Flight level CI is already on 6. We're going to be 110 passengers and 2,100 on the cargo. Going to make provision for extra 15 minutes as well as 30-minute hold at LPFR. We're going to edit the route. And again, I'm just copying this route from the Ryanair page, like I've shown you a few times already. 31 right is the correct one, and then we're going to take the northern departure. Just zoom in there. You see it looks exactly the same that we had earlier. Let's just change the background there. Right, and then at LPPT, we said we're taking runway 03 and in bow 8 Alpha. So there you can see exactly the same thing. Let's build that flight plan a little bit. Alright, so in bow 8 Alpha. Why did it not save that? Doesn't matter, we just do it again. Glad I noticed that. Right, I think I was supposed to build the flight before adding the SID and stars, easy as that. So let's apply that. LPFR for the alternate, there you go. Let's compute our flight. Do our takeoff performance. Right, we still got that gust 35 knots. Makes it nice and interesting. Our landing performance. Flaps 30, calculate. Nothing special there. Alright, I'm not sure if this validation works. Some guys say it does, some guys says it doesn't, so it doesn't matter to me. We're just going to skip past there. That's our OFP. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to click on the Save button. So I'm going to save it into a location that's going to be easy for me to pick it up from. And this is going to save the whole OFP in text format for us. To now get from this very nice OFP that's inside of our PFPX and get it working properly in STKP, there are a couple of things that we need to do at this point in time, and I hope with future versions of STKP it's going to be more automated or more easier, but for now just bear with me. The first thing that we need to look out for is obviously the string. I've highlighted that for you there already. So under our routing, we simply need to go and pick up the routing string, and then we're going to go and paste it into the routing block there, exactly like we did in part 1 at the beginning of this tutorial when we had no other assistance. We just copied the information over. Right, so there are two tricks to this now. Obviously, with this specific flight plan, there is a double inscription for the departure airport. We need to remove that, and we need to take the break out of the string. This flight plan string needs to be a single string for it to work properly. We are then going to look at our cruise level that needs to go in. Our flight number goes in. We're going to look at the actual aircraft, and then 8 kilo papa. That is about the information that we can give it. Right, so what we're going to do is load from the pasted flight plan again, like stage 1 earlier in the video, and then we can visually check and see it looks exactly the same to me. It's already got the star this side as well, and just out of habit I just go and close all these things and make sure I don't see any weird thing pop up at me that might be an issue. Alright, now as per stage 1, this flight route, the whole plan was not validated by Simbrief, so there's no export facility, but fortunately you can export from PFPX already. It's much of a muchness. So having all the information available to us, we can now click on Fly Now. This gives us our stock standard bit of information in STKP on the left hand side, but you will note that the OFP is not here. That the same OFP that we would get from Simbrief is just not here. We, however, did export it in a text format, and we can now go and load it by clicking Load My Own OFP File here at the top right hand side. Once we have located the file, we simply click on it and select Open, and that brings the OFP that was exported from PFPX straight into your STKP. As easy as that. From here on out, it's the same procedure as always. We're going to go to our map and then complete our flight as usual. As always, please just make sure that X-plane is actually connected. Otherwise, just click those rounded arrows over there, let it refresh, and you're good to go. Once you are done with your flight, please just remember to go to your flight summary and click on complete the flight to allow STKP to save your relevant information. To the best of my knowledge, PFPX is still not saved. This whole OFP is not saved as we get with the Simbrief one, but I believe that is something for the future that will be implemented at some point in time. This concludes the tutorial for today, guys, and I hope you find that it was very helpful and that you learned something from it. And I hope that you enjoy using your Simtoolkit Pro to help assist with your flight planning. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk again very soon.